Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Terima kasih kerana menghadiri sidang akhbar pada pagi ini mengenai prestasi ekonomi negara pada suku ketiga tahun 2024 dan juga perkembangan moneteri dan kewangan oleh Bank Negara Malaysia dan Jabatan Perangkaan Malaysia. Bersama saya ialah Ketua Perangkawan Malaysia yang berbahagia Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin. Selamat datang Datuk Seri, terima kasih. Sebagaimana kita sedia maklum, Jabatan Perangkaan Malaysia merupakan agensi rasmi yang mengumpul dan menerbitkan statistik KDNK negara. And as per our usual practice, please allow me to continue the presentation in English for the benefit of our international audience. Global growth in the third quarter of 2024 was sustained, supported by a resilient labour market. Regional trade expanded faster amid the support from broad-based strength in electrical and electronic and non-E&E goods. Inflation continued its downward trajectory, paving the way for further monetary policy easing in many countries. Let me now hand over the presentation to Datuk Seri Dr. Uzair to announce Malaysia's GDP performance in the third quarter of 2024. Silakan Datuk Seri Uzair.
Terima kasih, Kak Menor. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Pada suku ketiga 2024, ekonomi Malaysia berkembang sebanyak 5.3%. Peningkatan ini didorong oleh aktiviti pelaburan yang lebih kukuh, ekspor barangan dan perkhidmatan yang lebih tinggi, serta pertumbuhan perbelanjaan isi rumah yang disokong oleh pasaran pekerja yang positif dan langkah-langkah dasar yang berterusan. Dari segi pengeluaran, sektor perkhidmatan mencatatkan pertumbuhan sebanyak 5.2%, sektor pembuatan meningkat 5.6%, sektor pembinaan mengukuh kepada 19.9%, dan sektor pertanian bertumbuh 3.9%. Manakala sektor pelemongan dan pengkuarian menyusut 3.9%. Dari sudut permintaan, perbelanjaan penggunaan isi rumah meningkat 4.8%, pelaburan awam dan swasta berkembang masing-masing pada kadar 14.4% dan 15.5%. Selain itu, perbelanjaan penggunaan kerajaan meningkat 4.9%, manakala ekspor bersih mencatatkan penurunan 8.8%. In the third quarter of 2024, the Malaysian economy advanced by 5.3%. This was supported by stronger expansion in investment activities, highest goods and services export, as well as expansion in household spending amid positive labour market condition, and also implementation of new policies such as new public service remuneration system and progressive wage. On the expenditure side, domestic demand was driven mainly by stronger investment. The growth in both private and public investment reflected stronger structured spending as well as machinery and equipment. Private consumption continued to be supported by positive labour market condition and policy measures. Meanwhile, net export declined as stronger intermediate and capital import outweighed higher growth of export. On the supply side, most sectors continue to expand, except for the mining sector. The services sector continue to expand, supported by consumer-related services. The manufacturing sector recorded stronger activity in the export-oriented cluster. The robust construction sector growth was driven by non-residential, residential and special trade subsectors. On the commodity side, agriculture sector's growth was supported by a moderate increase in oil palm production amid contraction in fisheries output. However, the mining sector growth declined following maintenance activity in the oil and gas subsector. The current account of the balance of payment recorded a surplus of RM 2.2 billion or 0.4% of GDP during the quarter, underpinned by continued goods account surplus amid improving export level. The services accounts show favorable performance with a lower deficit of RM 1.6 billion. This improvement was mainly due to a higher surplus in travel, which stemmed from increased spending by foreign tourists in Malaysia and a lower deficit in other business services. Meanwhile, the primary income account recorded a wider deficit owing to income accrued to foreign investors as well as lower earnings by Malaysian companies abroad. Additionally, the secondary income account remained in deficit. On the investment side, FDI recorded a higher net inflow of 14.5 billion ringgit during the quarters. These inflows reflect turnaround in investment of earning, larger equity injection, and continued inflow in debt instrument. These investments were channeled mainly to services sector, predominantly in information and communication, and wholesale and retail trade subsector. The FDI were primarily from Singapore, Hong Kong, and Switzerland. In the meantime, direct investment abroad, DIA registered a higher net outflow of RM 18.9 billion. The main sector were manufacturing, followed by services and mining and quarrying. Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and Canada were the main destination of direct investment abroad. Thank you. Let me now hand over the presentation back to the Governor.
Thank you, Dr. Sri, Dr. Jose. In the near term, both external and domestic leading indicators suggest sustained growth prospects for the Malaysian economy. If you look at the left-hand side panel, the latest projections by the IMF point to favorable global conditions with sustained global growth and higher global trade. And this will support demand for Malaysia's export of goods and services. Furthermore, Malaysia's latest leading indicators performance suggests further improvement of the overall economy. With the forthcoming performance, the year-to-date growth is strong at 5.2%, and this is well within our projection of between 4.8 to 5.3%. And moving into 2025, we expect growth to expand between 4.5 to 5.5%. And this is supported by household spending, which will remain the anchor of growth, driven by expansion in employment and income, as well as continued policy support. Furthermore, investment activities will continue to support growth amid the ongoing progress in multi-year projects, realization of the high approved investments, and the favorable financing conditions. And on the external front, higher exports and tourist spending will also continue to lift growth. The growth outlook, however, remains subject to risks from both external and domestic factors. Downside risks could stem from weaker than expected external demand from key export partners, further escalation of geopolitical conflicts, and more protectionist policies, as well as lower than expected commodity production. On the other hand, growth could be higher due to greater spillovers from the global technology upcycle and more robust tourism industry. In addition, a faster implementation of existing and new investment projects could also lead to more robust investment activity and the overall growth in the economy. Moving on to the external sector, Malaysia's trade performance in the third quarter remains highly encouraging. Gross exports grew by 7.8%, and this is driven by continued external demand and the global tech upcycle. These are evident from the sustained growth of E&E and non-E&E exports by 5.2% and 10% respectively. And we project export growth to sustain, arising from the global tech upcycle and the continued strong demand for our non-E&E goods. At the same time, gross imports expanded at a faster rate of 20.8%, contributed by increased imports of capital and intermediate goods. And going forward, we expect imports to remain strong, and this is driven by capital imports from investment upcycle and intermediate imports to support higher exports in the future. Importantly, these investments will further raise exports and expand the productive capacity of the economy. Consumer spending remains as the anchor of growth, and this is supported by the continued wage increases and employment growth. Moving forward, household spending is projected to remain resilient, lifted by rising income, expanding employment opportunities, along with targeted policy initiatives to support selected households. The investment upcycle is a key bright spot in the economy. Overall investment registered a higher growth of 15.3%. If you look at the second quarter this year at 15.5%. And this is supported by both structures and machinery and equipment. The continued implementation of new and existing projects is reflected in the higher construction activities, mainly in the private sector during the quarter. Investments are also supported by the good implementation progress of key infrastructure projects such as the ECRL and the Pan-Borneo Highway. Notably, we observe the recent strength in investment growth is mainly private sector driven, although both public and private sector investments recorded strong growth in the third quarter. In addition, investments are increasingly geared towards high-tech industries such as E&E and also the ICT. And recent strengths in investment activities also resulted in higher capital imports. But this can be seen as a necessary transition to enhance and diversify sources of growth and our future exports, create high-skill and high-income jobs, as well as raise the nation's productive capacity in the future. To further support investment activity, I'm pleased to announce the globalization of the foreign exchange policy to better facilitate greater participation from global investors in key growth areas in Malaysia. And this is in line with the greater demand and interest by international financial institutions to finance the high-value investment projects in Malaysia that we have observed in the recent period. With the liberalization, multilateral development banks and qualified non-resident development financial institutions are now free to issue ringgit-denominated bonds and sukuk for use in Malaysia and to provide ringgit financing to resident entities. These flexibilities will widen financing opportunities in ringgit to support business investments while reducing currency mismatch risk. At the same time, spur more issuances and participation by global issuers and international investors in the domestic bond and sukuk markets. The close collaboration with the MDBs and the reputable DFIs can also facilitate knowledge transfer and complement the blended finance approach in mobilizing capital to strategic new growth areas such as climate transition. For more information on the liberalization, please refer to the press release on Bank Negara's website. Now let me turn to inflation. Both headline and core inflation remain stable at 1.9% in the third quarter. While there were pockets of higher inflation for selected items such as diesel and vehicle insurance, this was offset by broader moderation for food and beverages inflation during the quarter. Of note, the stable underlying inflation during the quarter continues to suggest limited spillover to broader prices from the diesel subsidy rationalization that was implemented in June, which we largely attribute to effective enforcement and mitigation measures to minimize the cost impact on businesses. Year to date, both headline and core inflation averaged 1.8% and are expected to remain modest for the remainder of the year. For 2025, inflation is projected to average between 2% to 3.5%, accounting for impending domestic policy measures announced in Budget 2025, including the implementation of targeted RON95 subsidies and the expanded scope of the SST. Upside risk to the outlook remains contingent on the extent of spillovers from further domestic policy measures to the broader prices, as well as lingering risks from external developments which could drive up global commodity prices or disrupt global supply conditions. On the downside, lower domestic inflation could result from the weaker than expected global growth, which could weigh on global commodity prices and domestic economic conditions through weaker external demand. Turning to monetary policy, the MPC maintained the OPR at 3% at the November meeting. The MPC deemed that the monetary policy stance remained supportive of the economy, and our monetary policy will remain forward-looking and data-driven, and the MPC will continue to assess the evolving conditions and the implications on the inflation and domestic growth trajectories into 2025. Moving on to ringgit performance, the ringgit appreciated by 14.9% in the third quarter and 3.1% to date as at 13 November against the US dollar. Ringgit's performance in the third quarter was mainly driven by the US Federal Reserve's shift towards a monetary policy easing stance, including the cumulative 75 basis points federal funds rate cut in September and November. Financial market participants also expect further rate cuts by the US Fed moving into 2025. On the domestic front, investor confidence in Malaysia's growth prospects has been bolstered by the government's implementation of structural reforms. Meanwhile, ongoing coordinated efforts by the government and Bank Negara Malaysia continue to provide support for the ringgit during the quarter. This includes a pilot QRI program, which provides foreign exchange flexibility to encourage resident corporates to bring back foreign currency funds and convert them into ringgit. In light of the positive feedback received on the QRI program, we are pleased to announce that the pilot program will be further expanded to accept applications from eligible resident corporates who have direct investment abroad assets of 500 million ringgit and above. Previously, it was 1 billion ringgit and above, and with the registration deadline extended until 30th June next year. Additional information about this program, such as the eligibility criteria, application form, and other operational information can be found on the Bank Negara Malaysia's website. In terms of ringgit outlook moving forward, notwithstanding the recent financial market volatility following the US presidential election outcome, the ringgit is expected to be supported by the narrowing interest rate differentials between the US and Malaysia. Additionally, the strong domestic growth and ongoing reforms momentum could also provide further tailwinds for the ringgit. Amid global risks arising from a more gradual reduction in the US policy rate, geopolitical tensions and policy uncertainty post-US election, Bank Negara Malaysia will continue to ensure a better balance of flows and orderly adjustments in the ringgit. Moving on to credit intermediation, credit growth moderated to 4.8% in the third quarter of this year. Second quarter, it was 5.5%, amid slower growth in the outstanding business loans and the corporate bonds. And loan growth for households remained sustained. For businesses, outstanding loan growth moderated to 4.5%. In Q2, it was 5.7%, amid slower growth in loans to non-SMEs. For SME loans growth, however, continued to be forthcoming, and it grew at 8.8%. By sector, loan growth for the services sector was sustained, while growth moderated for the manufacturing and the construction sectors. For households, loan growth remained steady at 6.1%, with sustained expansion of loans across key purposes, particularly for the purchase of housing and cars. Demand for household financing continued to be forthcoming, with higher loan applications recorded across most loan purposes. Financing by banks and DFIs continued to support the SMEs business needs in the third quarter of this year, with financing outstanding growing by 8.8%. In the third quarter of this year, support from banks remains forthcoming, with debt servicing maintained by the SMEs. Double-digit growth of 16.7% was observed in approvals of investment-related financing, and in the third quarter as well, the growth in approvals was driven by the services sector, the real estate activities in particular, and the construction sector. The banking system continued to play an important role in supporting economic growth during the quarter, owing to their strong financial position, including the robust levels of capital and healthy liquidity buffers. Banks remain well positioned to support the financing needs of the domestic economy. The quality of business and household loans remains sound, with low and stable impairment ratios. Newly restructured and rescheduled loans were also limited. This has been supported by prudent loan affordability assessments and provisioning practices by banks, which help ensure that banks have sufficient buffers to absorb any losses. I've come to the end of the presentation. In summary, the Malaysian economy expanded by 5.3% in third quarter of this year, driven mainly by stronger private expenditure and further recovery in exports. The growth prospects in 2025 remain positive, although there are risks to the outlook from both the external and domestic factors. Meanwhile, headline inflation is expected to average between 2% and 3.5% in 2025. And with that, my team and I, as well as Dr. Uze and his team, will be happy to take questions from the media. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. Now we have moved to the Q&A section. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and our mic runners stand ready to pass you a mic. But before you ask your question, can you please state your name and identify the organization in which you are affiliated with? We will take the questions in three parts. We will first start with questions on the economy, then followed by questions on financial stability, and then we will end with miscellaneous questions. All right, first round of questions on the economy. Yes, can I have one on the gentleman on my right?
Hello. Hi. Governor, thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Heiichi Oshima from GG Press, a Japanese news agency. I have a question about the private consumption. Under such a favorable condition, how could private consumption decelerate, and how do you see its future?
All right, can we get another question? Sorry, the lady in...
Hello, good morning. My name is Anissa, I'm from Bloomberg. I have a few questions, but I'll just issue two for now. My first question is, how big a threat would the US universal tariff hikes pose to Malaysia's growth? By contrast, would Trump's proposed 60% tariff on China be a growth opportunity for Malaysia? And what sort of bump to growth could that produce? My second question, looking over the medium term, the IMF is projecting Malaysian growth at just over 4% on average between 2025 to 2029. Does that more or less match your expectation? And what do you see as the main sources of that growth?
Okay, Governor, I think we can take these questions.
Thank you for the two questions, Shijo. Your question on the private consumption. Private consumption remains the anchor of growth for the Malaysian economy. And at 4.8%, actually, it's still a resilient, strong growth for private consumption. And this is supported by sustained growth in income. And the policy support is still there to also assist the vulnerable households that's affected by high cost of living, including the targeted cash transfer. So we believe in terms of the outlook for consumption will continue to be resilient, partly because you see in terms of employment is growing. You look at the unemployment rate has come down to about 3.3%, and this is the rate that we saw pre-pandemic. Second is that income has been going up, so this is also support consumption moving forward. And third, in terms of the measures by the government with the increase in civil salary this year, and so in terms of implementation of the budget measures with regard to the minimum wage, that will also provide support, further support to consumption in Malaysia. And it's on your question with regard to the policy in the US, especially in terms of tariff. I think you can expect that the US election results can lead to volatility in the financial markets in the near term. And everyone is actually waiting to see what policies the US will implement. One of the policies that was mentioned during the campaign process and what will go into policy formulation. Perhaps it's too early for us to tell in terms of what will be the impact. Let's see in terms of once there's clarity in terms of the policy implementation, then we'll be in a better position to do an assessment. But I think what is important to note is that we are entering this period from a position of strength. Our growth is mostly domestic demand, and Malaysia has a very highly diversified economy and trade partners. And if you look in terms of trade within ASEAN itself is about 27%. So that's one of the strengths that we have. And we have a strong growth prospects in Malaysia. So these are the strong prospects that we have, that we are entering this situation from a position of strength. Then your second question in terms of the IMF's projection of 4% between 2025 to 2029. If you look in terms of for this year, we initially projected growth to be between 4 to 5%. So that is in terms of the growth that we were expecting this year. But when we look in terms of what the performance for the last 3 quarters, there are a number of elements that supported growth. For example, in terms of consumption itself. Second, in terms of investment, we saw strong growth in investment, and we have also strong growth in export with the recovery in global trade. And we see strong growth in terms of tourism spending as well. So these are the elements that supported growth. And these factors will continue to be there throughout the next year and also going into 2026. All this has legs and will continue to support growth in Malaysia. So we do see the prospects for Malaysia's economic growth is positive and strong.
All right, thank you, Governor. Can we go for a second round of questions on the economy? Can I have one on the lady on my right?
Hi, Governor. Joe from FMT.
Yes, Joe.
So Bank Negara had wanted Malaysian businesses to repatriate their earnings from abroad and to convert it to ringgit rather than hold it in USD. Have our businesses taken BNM's advice? And also, it's a 2-part question. So any numbers that BNM can share on that? Has it led to a recent appreciation of the ringgit against the USD? And then my second question is the government comfortable with the current level of the ringgit? Has the appreciation brought any impact, positive or negative? If so, what are they?
One more question. Let's perhaps take one more question. Yep. Can I have a gentleman on my left, please?
Hi, Governor. From Business Today. Hi. So I've got 2 questions. One is with regard to the budget announcements. A lot of the initiatives will start taking effect beginning January 1st. Do you see any of those policies impacting growth in terms of there's already inflation is expected to increase, and the real economy, basically things are slowing down. So do you see further slowdown in the first quarter of next year? And what are some of the initiatives Bank Negara is looking at, or what are things that you are looking out for? And the other question is with regard with intervention on the ringgit. Is Bank Negara looking at intervening with the ringgit actually going up quite significantly in the last couple of weeks?
Maybe I'll take the questions first.
Yep.
Thank you. First, Joe, thanks for the question. In terms of the our efforts with regard to encourage businesses to repatriate the export earnings and convert into ringgit, and also in terms of encouraging investors to bring back income and convert into ringgit, that has yielded a positive outcome, I have to say. If you look in terms of where the ringgit was, for example, ringgit appreciated by 10% this year when we started between 26 February to 20 October. And in terms of the nominal effective exchange rate, that also appreciated by 9.8%. And one more is that in terms of, you look at the average daily forex turnover, it has increased from 15 billion to 18 billion. And we have seen a healthy two-way flow in the market. And you have also seen in terms of appreciation in the ringgit itself. So that has definitely benefited the ringgit. In terms of level of ringgit, it's not about the targeted level or certain level, but what's more important is that in terms of, it should be reflective of the fundamentals of the Malaysian economy, and it should be reflective of the prospect of the Malaysian economy. So what we have seen is that with the changes in the policy shifts, monetary policy shifts in the advanced economy, particularly in the US, we have seen the ringgit depreciating. And added with the tailwind that we have in terms of the fundamentals that we have, in terms of the strong prospects of growth that we have seen, and also coupled with the reform measures that has been undertaken by the government. So this has actually provided good support for the ringgit. And we believe this will continue to be positive for the ringgit. When the questions regard to the budget measures, of course, I think if you look in terms of the budget measures, some of it in terms of the minimum wage, for example, that will definitely be positive for growth. That will support our private consumption. In terms of inflation, we believe the impact will be rather limited. And we have seen in terms of from the previous increase in minimum wage, the impact on inflation has been rather small. So we believe it will be the same for this time around as well. And in terms of international ringgit, actually our presence in the forex market is to ensure there's no excessive volatility and there's an orderly market so that businesses can operate in a very smooth manner. And we'll continue to do that to ensure that the markets remains orderly. And we have a presence there as a need basis.
Right, thank you, Governor. I will take one last round of questions on the economy before moving forward to the next segment. All right, can I have the lady on my left, please?
Hi, I'm He from Sinshu Daily. About the liberalization of FEP, is it a new movement, or can I have more info about this?
Yes, it is new. It's to provide flexibility for the MDBs and the DFIs to actually raise ringgit financing in Malaysia, to finance projects in Malaysia. So I think perhaps greater details on this maybe is actually in our website. Maybe Dijana, you want to add?
Yes. All this while MDBs can seek approval. Now they don't need to seek approval. They can just go ahead and do it. So the information is on the website. Yeah, I think that's the key difference. Before this, Bengal would have to approve the transactions, but now it's on. The flexibility is there for them to just proceed with the transaction. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take two more last questions in this last round. Oh, wow. Sorry, can I have one on the front, please? Front row and the middle row, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jana from Bernama. I just need to clarify, when you mentioned about inflation will rather be limited, are you referring to RON 95 impacts, or maybe you can explain more, Governor? Thank you.
Right, can we take one more?
Okay.
One more question?
Manu from Britarian. Dalam belanjawan 2025, it is no mention projek baru mega kan. So, adakah projek mega yang sedia ada ni akan mampu support the growth next year? So, kalau target inflation tu tahun depan, adakah itu dah ambil kira RON 95 punya efek dan juga perluasan SST? Okay, lagi satu pasal ada report kata Malaysia dah US dah remove kita punya dalam watch list tu. Apa pandangan Bank Negara lah?
Maybe I'll answer that question.
Governor, please.
Okay, the first question in terms of the minimum wage, whether we have to taken in terms of RON 95. Just now when I responded, I said we meeting minimal is from the minimum wage punya measure in the budget 2095. But if you look at our inflation projection for next year, between 2 to 3.5%, this has taken into account some of the potential implementation of the RON 95 subsidization as well. So they'll be within that range. And of course, this will depend in terms of the details once it has been announced by the government regard to the implementation mechanism. And what has been mentioned in the budget is that this will be implemented middle of next year. In terms of Manu, your question regard to there's no project baru. The project that we have right now, I think they are multi-year. So dia akan terus dilaksanakan tahun-tahun akan depan and dia akan terus menyumbang kepada pertumbuhan ekonomi negara kita. But more importantly is that in terms of we also have new investments coming in. If you look at investments, for example, last year itself, our investments total was 330 billion. And this year, first half of this year is about 160 billion ringgit. And this is very good, in fact. And this, what we saw is that in terms of investment right now, a few points I would like to highlight is that number one is that we see the investments now is going into high quality area. It's also creating high value added activity. It's also creating high income jobs. And kita nampak dia juga selari dengan aspirasi kita di bawah NIA in terms of it has strong domestic economic linkages, and it also will enhance the complexity of economy, and it's going into like E&E dan ICT dan sebagainya. So this will also terus memacu pertumbuhan ekonomi negara untuk masa hadapan. In terms of the inflation rate, as I mentioned just now, kita project 2 to 3.5%, and this has taken into account scenarios regard to the potential implementation of the RON 95 dan juga the SSD. Thank you. Okay, sorry, I missed that. Yes, I think we welcome this development in terms of we've been removed from the currency manipulator watch list. And I think just to highlight that this shows that ringgit has always been a market determined currency, and we never use exchange rate to gain competitiveness in the market. So this is something that affirms our belief and affirms our position on this matter. It's a welcome development. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Now we're moving on to the second segment. Are there any questions of financial stability? Okay. If there are no questions of financial stability, I'll move to the last segment, which is, do you have any questions, any miscellaneous questions, apart from the economy and financial stability? Yes, I have one on my right, please. Yeah.
Hi, Governor. This one question about the economy. For the past 2 quarters now, Malaysia's GDP growth is outpacing China's. So do you expect this to continue? What's Malaysia doing right that China is doing wrong? And my next question is, would you say Malaysia has escaped the middle income trap, or are we still trying to get out of it? What will be the key going forward? That's all.
So another round of questions. I have one as well on the back.
Hi, Governor. I'm Disheng from Nanyang, and I would like to know, is BNM still expecting the Fed to continue their easing cycle after Trump winning the election? Because one of the biggest concern of the market is the Trump tariff policies may enhance the inflation pressure in US. And if the Fed is stopping their easing cycle prematurely, what is the impact on our ringgit? Thank you.
All right, Governor.
All right, thank you. Okay, Anissa, in terms of the comparison between China and Malaysia, perhaps I will avoid making comparison between two countries. But what's more important to note is that in terms of our growth story, in terms of what we are seeing is that we have bright prospect in terms of growth, partly because a number of reasons. Number one is that we have strong fundamentals. Kedua is that we have strong growth impetus that's supporting our growth. For example, in terms of consumption, we see employment growing, we see income growing, and we see measures being put in place to even increase income further from the minimum wage and sebagainya. Kedua, we see investment coming in as well. In terms of that interest on investment, both from the DDI and also FDI into the country. And we're seeing that these investments are also going into more high quality investments that will create high income jobs. When you create high income jobs, so that's where it will improve consumption further. So this will support our growth. And third is that in terms of export, we are very well plugged in terms of the global supply chain, global value chain with regard to the ENE and non-ENE. So this will continue to provide us a strength for export to growth. In fact, I think the global tech upcycle, we have benefited from that. And we continue to be the destination for tourists to come in and they spend. In fact, the spending of tourists has also increased and it has gone beyond what we saw pre-pandemic. So all these elements will continue to support growth in the country. So this is what differentiates Malaysia. And more importantly now is that we are also undertaking the relevant right measures. For example, the reform measures that are being undertaken right now in terms of fiscal reform, in terms of investment. We are attracting high quality investments and we want to make sure that we get investment that has strong domestic linkages to the economy. In terms of our labour market, the reform that we are undertaking. So we are putting in place the right policy reform that will strengthen our economy moving forward, that will further strengthen our fundamentals, that will also contribute towards stronger economic growth as we move forward in the future. So that's from the growth story. And in terms of moving from the middle income trap, so all these policies that I mentioned in terms of in particular investment itself, in terms of attracting the high quality investment that create high income jobs, that will also lead us towards becoming a high income nation. In addition to that, in terms of the labour market reform, for example, the active labour market policy in terms of reskilling, upskilling to prepare our talent to be able to meet the demands of the new investments that's coming in. So all this will also lead towards us becoming a high income nation. So this way I think policies have been put in the right direction for us to move towards that. Benching, in terms of question with regard to the Fed, of course I think Fed will have to make decisions based on their domestic considerations as well, and we will have to see in terms of what are the direction of the monetary policy in the US. But from what we are seeing is that there's a change in terms of the broader monetary policy direction in the advanced economy, not just in the US but also broader advanced economy. They are moving towards easing monetary policy. And this easing monetary policy will certainly contribute towards a more narrowing interest rate differential with Malaysia. When we have a smaller interest rate differential with Malaysia, so that's where you will provide support for the ringgit moving forward.
All right, thank you, Governor. Can I go for a second round of questions? Can I have the lady in the front, please? Thank you.
Hi, Governor. Amanda from TV3. I just like to ask, berdasarkan bagi pertumbuhan KDNK sebab daripada Julai, Ogos and September dia nampak dia macam agak menurun. From July it's like dia pertumbuhan dia sederhana lah. So daripada Julai 7.4% and then Ogos 4.7 and lepas tu September 4%. So jadi adakah trend ni akan menurun, adakah dia akan bawah 4% for the the month going forward? Lepas tu, ataupun bagaimana ia akan memacu lagi pertumbuhan bagi pertumbuhan yang seterusnya. Terima kasih.
Right, thank you. Can we have Can we have the lady in the middle, please? Yep.
For Trump's win, one of the possibilities is that he will repeal or alter the Chips and Science Act. How do you think that would impact the economy, especially since tech is such a significant investment in our country? And have you changed your projections for it moving forward? Thank you.
Maybe we'll take one more. All right, thank you.
Hi. Could you tell us if this ringgit bond is first in Malaysia? Ringgit denominated bond issued by the foreign entity. Is it the first time for Malaysia to allow such an issue? I'm asking this because we had an Asian crisis. And also the second is that, do you have any, nickname for such a bond? We have samurai bond in Japan issued by foreign entities in yen denomination.
All right, Governor?
Yeah, just one more, even on Trump, right? Based on the previous report, I think from PIMB, stating that based on track record, like for example, like Trump's administration has actually spurred even in trade and also FDI. Do you see the same for the next term?
Those questions first, Chandra.
Governor.
I think maybe Amanda, your question in terms of the trend of GDP in terms of monthly. I think maybe we should not look too much in terms of the monthly trend. Of course, it'll be bumpy, it'll be moving, it'll be volatile, depending on the number of activity during that month, depending on the number of days in that particular month as well. So this will change. But what's more important is that to look at the trend of growth itself. If you look in terms of this year, as I said earlier on, we initially projected between 4 to 5%. And the performance thus far is showing us growing at 5.2%, beyond what we actually projected. And for next year, we're projecting it to be between 4.5 to 5.5%. So in terms of trend, it's moving upwards. And what's driving this are the factors I shared just now in terms of the positive private consumption, investment, export, and also tourists. That's in terms of growth. Let me also answer your question in terms of Trump. I think you look in terms of, this is not the first time. I think we're seeing this presidency. We have seen this in the past. And in fact, I think during that period, if you look between 2017 to 2019, our GDP grew by 5%. And our export grew by about 8%. And our ringgit also appreciated by about 8% after initial volatility. So we can expect the same thing as well. Then in terms of the, there's a question about the Chip and Science Act. Yep. So I would say these questions in terms of the policy changes, let's see in terms of what actually transpire in terms of actual policy formulation itself. And I think basically what has been mentioned as campaign promises, we need to see in terms of what actually goes into the actual policy formulation. Once we have clarity, then we will be able to do an assessment. We will not speculate at this point of time. But again, having said that, in terms of the tech upcycle that we experience, this will continue to support the Malaysian economy in terms of its growth. And we have a strong position in E&E. In fact, we are one of the important players in E&E, and we export about 7% of the global semiconductor exports. Okay, maybe let me get Dijak Nan to answer on the ringgit domestic bond and whether are we going to have a name for the ringgit domestic bond. I can't think of a name right now, but I'm not sure that Nan has a name.
Okay, thank you, Governor. We're open to suggestions. In the past, we had various issuances of foreign currency bond or sukuk, foreign currency sukuk in Malaysia, and this was termed emas sukuk, which is gold. For ringgit, we have had issuances, but I can't recall the name, if we did term any, and most of them have matured. But this is a new area where for multilateral development banks are able to come in and issue without approval. So without Bank Negara's approval, they are free to issue, but it will still be subject to various capital market rules that prevail. So we will see what name we can accord such bonds or even sukuk ringgit denominated And if you have any good suggestions, please feel free to forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, DJ. Any other questions on the economy, financial sector, or any miscellaneous questions? Sorry, can I give the lady at the front, please? Thank you.
Hi, Governor. Esther from The Age. So I'd just like to know on the balance, right, the risk to the economy next year, is it tilted to the upside or the downside?
All right.
We can go to the slide on the downside risk and upside risk.
Oh, yeah. Governor.
Thank you, Esther. I think if you look at the chart, I would say that it's rather balanced. We've got the upside risk in terms of greater spillover from the tech upcycle. If we have faster implementation of the investment projects, and also in terms of if we do have more robust tourism activity. But of course, there are also downside risks. I think from weaker than expected external demand, especially from the key trade partners. If we see further escalation in geopolitical tensions and any protectionist measures, and also in terms of if there's any unexpected commodity lower commodity production. So I would believe that it is rather balanced in terms of risk.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, yep. Can we get three then? One in the middle and one on my right and one on my left, please. Yep.
Sorry, Governor, nobody answered my question just now. It's about the Chips and Science Act.
I did.
Oh,
I did answer.
I'm so sorry.
I said we have to see in terms of what the actual policy that will be put in place, if there's any. And having said that, I think we have strength in the E&E, and the global tech upcycle will continue to support our growth.
So it's a wait-and-see approach?
No, it's a wait-and-see approach. The global tech upcycle will continue to support Malaysia's economic growth. Okay. And the Chip and Act measures, if it's transpired into actual measures, then we'll see what it is, and then we'll do the assessment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sorry, one on my left.
Right.
Yep, go.
Hi, Tan Sri. It's me again over here from Business Today. So S&P Global forecast that the loan growth will be 6% for Malaysia next year. What's your view on that? It's much higher than this year. What are the key factors do you think that could actually support growth? Do you agree or you disagree with their prediction? The other one is with the ringgit again. What is different this time for the ringgit to actually go up the way it has gone compared to the past? I think previously the last time when the ringgit was weakening, the fundamentals of the country is strong, just that the outside environment that is the factor. What do you think the cause is now for this time? And when to what level would it be before Bank Negara presses the button, or do you think it will be coming back down in the short term?
Okay. All right. One in the far, my far right.
Hi, Governor. So Trump has won the U.S. elections, right? And then investors are more likely to return to the U.S. market. So could you elaborate a bit more on this? Because I know a lot has asked about Trump. Will this be bad for the ringgit? Joe from FMT again.
Right. Thank you, Governor. Before you answer these questions, can I remind the media that the PR is embargoed till 12 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you for all the questions. I think in terms of loan growth, if you look in terms of credit growth, is expected to remain broadly sustained as we go forward. You can see from the charts there. And this is supported by the steady demand from both households and also businesses. And for example, this year, I think you see in terms of the loan outstanding, in terms of the growth itself, given that there's greater investments coming into next year, and we also see in terms of greater financing to finance all these project investments, certainly there could be potential for it to be at 6%. But this depends on the demand for financing from the businesses and also households. In terms of ringgit, there's factors actually. In terms of, we look with regard to the elements that's driving ringgit, mainly external factors. In terms of the interest rate differential, in terms of the monetary policy in the advanced economy, and that has shifted. And so that has actually supported in terms of positive support to the ringgit, and that's where you see the appreciation in the ringgit itself. But what we are seeing of late is really in terms of the reaction to the outcome of the US election results. And it's something that's expected. I think in the short term, there could be some volatility, but perhaps it's important to really focus on the longer term trend. I think as I said earlier on, even during the previous presidency experience, we did see volatility in the financial market during the initial period, but after that it stabilized, and in fact ringgit appreciated by 8% during that period itself. Joe, again, in terms of your questions with regard to the policy in the US post the US election, I think, again, I mean, I have to say that we are entering this from a period of strength. I think in terms of our fundamental, in terms of our growth, and also in terms of, I think, the social reform that we have undertaken. All these things will provide Malaysia with the policy space to navigate any major shifts that we see in the global landscape, including from any policy changes or policy shifts that's coming as an outcome of the results of the US election. And I said in terms of, we have seen in the last experience that we had, while there's some volatility in the initial period, later on, I think we did grow about 5%. Our export grew about 8%. So that is in terms of, I think, what we have experienced in the past. So again, I think we shouldn't speculate. Let's see in terms of what are the campaign promises that's been transformed into real policy. Then that's where I think we'll be in a better position to make an assessment on it.
Right, thank you, Governor. We have come to the end of thank you so much. We have come to the end of our press conference today. Governor, may I invite you to have your closing remarks?
Thanks, Janway. I mean, together with Dr. Use, I would like to thank you for attending the press conference today. Before we go, I would like to highlight two things. The first is the launch of the Invest in Asia portal that some of you may have attended and covered a week ago. This is a one-stop platform that helps investors to make informed decisions when it comes to investing in Malaysia. And we hope we can count on you to help spread the word about this portal. Secondly, every year, Bank Negara Malaysia organizes our flagship carnival Celik Kewangan that engages the public on wide-ranging issues on financial literacy. It is held in various parts of Malaysia, and this year we will host it in Kuching, Sarawak, from today until Sunday. For those of you who have colleagues, friends, or family there, please do ask them to attend. With that, let me thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you so much for all your questions. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.